Be Your Best You, the Passionate to Purpose podcast with David Delaney. And good morning to you. This morning we talked to Moninne Griffith. Moninne is a passionate social activist with over 20 years experience in fields of advocacy, law and social justice. Today she leads Belong to Youth Services, which is Ireland's national organisation for LGBT plus young people. And as Executive Director, she is dedicated to supporting and empowering LGBT plus youth and achieving a world where they are equal, safe and valued in the diversity of their identities and experiences. Moninne spent 8 years as Director of Marriage Equality, an organisation working for and historically achieving equality for same-sex couples in Ireland. So Moninne is acutely aware of the needs and challenges of the LGBT plus community in Ireland today. We talked to Moninne about her work in those areas and much more. Moninne, good morning, and you're very, very welcome to this episode of Be Your Best You, Passionate to Purpose. It's great to have you.
Thank you. Thanks for inviting me.
Moninne, tell me a little bit about what you do.
Right. Well, I'm currently the CEO of Belong to, which is the National LGBT Youth Organisation. And so what we do at the core of it is provide safe spaces for LGBT young people to meet other young people who are going through the same things, similar life experiences, peer support really. And then we do workshops around minding your mental health, your sexual health, harm reduction around substance use, and then all sorts of fun things as well. So one week it might be a workshop on Harry Potter or beekeeping, so lots of that kind of stuff. Obviously everything's digital at the moment. We also provide one-to-one support for young people. So LGBT young people, unfortunately, are still at a higher risk of mental health issues because of isolation and bullying and the fear of rejection, which has gone up hugely during lockdown. We can talk more about that if you like, but so that's a lot of the support that we provide at the moment is one-to-one online, so via email, text, WhatsApp, telephone, that kind of stuff, and Zoom. Then we also work in partnership with Pieta House, so they provide free counselling for LGBT young people who are experiencing suicide ideation or self-harm. And then more broadly, what we do is we support youth services around Ireland to make sure that they're feeling comfortable to support young LGBT people no matter where they are in the country. There's with targeted LGBT specific groups, or just to make sure that their service is inclusive. And we work with schools to do the same, and then we run campaigns around anti-bullying stuff, and we work with the government around policy and legislation to make sure that the rights of LGBT young people are protected and recognized. So lots of stuff. We're really busy, and it's this year has been, well, the past 12 months, like everybody, has been a huge steep learning curve, but I love my job. Every day is different. It's exciting, and it's really great to be able to, I suppose, continue the work that I started when I was working in marriage equality, to help shape Ireland, and the future, this and future generations of young LGBT people, or the world for them, to make sure that it's a healthier, happier, more equal place for them to exist.
A full plate, but it sounds it. And it sounds, I suppose, one thing that's striking from young people in technology, it's probably a little easier in the sense, I'm not saying it's easy, because we all, the challenges have been massive. But young people, I think, are probably more clued in, like say people who have worked in an office traditionally 9 to 5 all their lives and have had to basically work from home, something that they've never done before, with new technology, with new working practices. So working with people is probably a tiny bit less of a challenge, because they're already on devices, they're kicked in. So the challenge, you mentioned there, fear of rejection and stuff like that. Like we speak to people on the podcast, about what has been challenging. So for young people growing up in Ireland, we talk about marriage equality and stuff in a second, but what is the biggest, what is there a single biggest challenge for young LGBT people in Ireland right now in the pandemic?
Yeah, I mean, the three biggest issues, and I know this because we record the issues that, you know, young people are making contact about. So the biggest one is coming out. Still is the biggest issue. So that fear of rejection, you know, will my family accept me? Will my friends still like me? Will I be, you know, ostracized from my peer groups? Will I get bullied? All that kind of stuff. Because uh, you know, so whether it's real or perceived, that fear is the crippling, it's that shame and stigma. Dr. Niall Muldoon, who's the Ombudsman for Children, is a child psychologist, and he talks about this really eloquently, much better than I can, but he talks about that it's that shame, it's the shame and the silencing and not being able to be yourself, not being at ease with yourself and worried if people find out about you. That's what does the huge damage to a person's mental health and well-being. So coming out is the biggest issue. You know, schools are still, unfortunately, in Ireland, 73% of LGBT young people don't feel safe in schools. And we did a big piece of research in 2019 with Columbia University in the United States. They've been running this survey for 20 years. We ran it in Ireland. And I mean, honestly, the stories that some of the young people came back, you know, still give me nightmares about the kind of bullying that they experience in schools. So it's not surprising then that coming out is still a huge issue for young people, you know, who, by the very fact that they are still living under their parents' roof, they're still in school, so therefore they're confined by rules and regulations and by, you know, a lot by, you know, society really, and society's expectations of them, that they would worry about coming out, and that fear of rejection. The second one is mental health issues. So we know from a big piece of research that was done by Trinity College a number of years ago that LGBT young people are twice as likely to self-harm, 3 times as likely to experience suicide ideation, and 4 times as likely to experience severe or extremely severe mental health issues like depression or anxiety. And that's obviously not just because they're LGBT, but back to that fear of rejection, isolation. Very often young people will self-isolate to protect themselves from being found out, or will be isolated, excluded from others because they're LGBT. And then the bullying that goes on. So it takes a sometimes tragic toll on young people's lives. So that's an issue that we deal with on a daily basis, and signpost young people then on to places like Pieta House for that additional clinical support that they need. And then the third issue that LGBT young people are struggling with is around trans issues. So I suppose the lack of healthcare for young trans people in Ireland, the lack of acceptance and understanding of trans identities and trans experiences, and the absolute, you know, violence online about trans people. Well, it ranges from a casual kind of transphobia right up to horrific things being said that completely dehumanize trans people. And I don't know if you've been watching It's a Sin, that documentary on Channel 4 about the AIDS crisis in London in the 80s. And it really reminds me about what's going on for trans people at the moment, that dehumanization, you know, talking about body parts, talking about surgeries, talking about all this medicalization, and moving very far away from, these are human beings we're talking about. These are people like you and I. They could be our family members, our friends. And, you know, instead of listening to them, this whole kind of fear about stuff that may never, ever happen, and the impact that it could have on me or mine, you know. So there's some of they're the three biggest issues, I suppose, that LGBT young people are coming to us in Dublin with, and it pretty much matches with what we're hearing from the youth clubs and youth organisations around Ireland who are supporting LGBT young people as well.
On that, with support, I mean, there's lots of things from listening to you about the challenges.
Something that comes up quite often is technology, and we've mentioned it already, and the use of technology. Can it be something like 2 steps back, almost, after taking a step forward? Like, so we have this isolation now, and people are at home, and people have these already existing challenges. And you mentioned the bullying and that kind of stuff. Has technology, has it amplified, and has it made it, I'm not going to say worse, but has it caused its own challenge in itself for young people with the likes of social media and stuff that we may not have had 10, 15 years ago? Is that something that comes up in discussion as a challenge within itself for young people? I mean, is technology a problem when it comes to transphobic and homophobic bullying with young people?
Well, the first thing I'll say is social media has been a lifesaver for a lot of LGBT young people, especially LGBT young people in rural settings or where they're not out. They can go online, they can have a fake name or an avatar. They can be in a gaming community or in a private space online and get to be themselves, although maybe with a fake name and an avatar, but express who they are, and find their own tribe. And that really decreases that sense of isolation. So you will find that LGBT young people in general are more, would use social media more than non-LGBT young people. Because of that, they can find their tribe no matter where they are. And in COVID, that's been a hugely positive thing. On the other side of it, yes, I think what we've seen in recent years, and it's not by accident, is an increase in hate speech, incitement to hate, anti-LGBT language, anti-LGBT sentiment, all of that. And that's very, that's very much pushed by a far right agenda. We know this from talking to human rights activists and human rights defenders in the UK and the US and other places in Europe who track this kind of stuff. They track the narrative, they track the language that's being used. And, so the far right have lost on things like marriage equality. They've lost on issues around abortion rights. And the next thing that they're really trying to do is focus in on trans and LGBT and dehumanize us and dehumanize members of our community. And so what happens then is they are very clever. We may have been smart 10 years ago in terms of how we used online platforms for good, if you like, for progressive change and to educate and to raise awareness and to share stories, so that we could get the message out to people. They've leapfrogged us now, and they are using online platforms to spread that message of hate. And so we've seen a significant increase in the abuse that young people are experiencing online, and just the normalization of very hurtful language, ranging from seems innocuous enough, seems absolutely, said with the best of intention and not without malice or anything like that, right up to, calling for, murder and all sorts of stuff. So it's really scary. And it's something that as citizens, we need to be aware of fake news. We need to be aware of how we are being manipulated, how we're being dragged down rabbit holes online to read about things that mightn't be true and might, so it's really important to know about our, that whole digital literacy is becoming more and more important, I think.
I'm just going to, I suppose, go a slight tangent. You were a solicitor for 10 years.
Yeah.
So you're sitting there in your solicitor's office. What happened? And all of a sudden, you just when did you decide, you know what, I'm going to change the country. I'm going to be part of this. I'm going out and changing the law. What happened in your world that you decided to start the fight for marriage equality?
Yeah. Well, not to put too fine a point on it, I kind of kind of a bomb went off in my life. You know, I was coming up to my 30th birthday. I was working as a solicitor. I was married to a lovely man. I lived in a house that we bought together. I was doing all the things that a good middle class girl, Irish girl, is expected to do by her mammy and her daddy. And I was bloody miserable. I was very unhappy. I had become very unwell physically as a result of that anxiety and the anguish that was going on. It was taking its toll on me, obviously mentally, but physically as well. And it just came to a crunch. And, you know, there were some very dark days, and I just had a kind of an epiphany that was like, you know, something has to change here. And so it did. You know, I took a huge leap of faith, and not without a lot of support and help. I had been, you know, I'd met some amazing women through, I'd gone back to UCD to do a master's in women's studies, and made some friends who were out and in long-term loving relationships, and who were mums or not mums, and who had careers and had everything that I wanted and I thought was beyond me, or that I didn't deserve, I suppose. And so they gave me the courage, you know, to make that step. Also, I think reading about and learning about power systems and homophobia and sexism and racism, and how it's all connected, and how we're socially conditioned to think, you know, and all that unconscious bias, and me, you know, and the hard time I was giving myself. And so it helped me with all of that. And I also did a lot of counseling. So within the space of a few months, I had left my job. I had left my husband, left my marriage, left my home. And yeah, and I started to, I was volunteering with the CAL Advocacy Initiative, which is Catherine Zapone and Anne Louise Gilligan, who are taking a case through the Irish courts to have their Canadian marriage recognised here in Ireland. So I got to meet them, and they were like, oh my God, just amazing. I know you met them too, Dave, on the marriage equality tour, but they were just, you know, very significant people in my life. They were role models, very generous, kind, patient and passionate people, mentors, and you know, they really, yeah, changed my life. And so I came to give some work, volunteer with their campaign, and then it kind of snowballed from there. You know, it was kind of, I think that sometimes some people, when they come out, certainly was my experience, that all that energy that you have wasted, hating yourself, hiding yourself, you know, worried about things that really don't bloody matter. You suddenly have all this energy and this positivity, and you feel, I certainly felt good. I felt like literally a weight had been taken off my chest. And I was, you know, it was like a whole new world had opened up to me. And so I kind of fell into it. And then I suppose from a personal point of view, having been married, you know, I just did not understand why heterosexual relationships would be valued over same-sex relationships, when the same kind of love and support and commitment and all those other really valuable things that we know are valuable to us as individuals, as human beings, for our families, for our communities, for all sorts of reasons, you know, why they would be treated differently. And so I suppose with my legal background and my passion for social justice, it kind of all made sense, you know.
A lot of people see the referendum, which was in 2015, a lot of people kind of only saw, I suppose, the public side of that only happened in the last kind of 12 to 18 months. But I mean, the work that you guys were doing behind the scenes, I mean, that was years. That went on for years and years and years. And you know, it's certainly fantastic to see. I mean, you're featured in the documentary on Netflix. You know, to see the work that led up to that. One thing that I'm going to ask, again, just I suppose, what was in the campaigning and the knock on the doors? Is it like this ramped up, you know, obviously towards the referendum? What was the, I suppose, the highs and lows of the Yes Equality campaign? I mean, was there a particularly fantastic response that you got from a no perspective? I know certainly from canvassing there was some interesting responses. Out of fear, out of curiosity, out of whatever. What was the best no response that you would have got? And you stood back and went, I can't answer that because that's just, you know, off the wall. What was the best one that you would have got?
Oh God, I can't remember now, but I mean, there were definitely some hostile receptions. You know, I remember pulling into it at a town, and there was an old fella waiting for me with, you know, no teeth and a wisp of hair across his head, and he was hurling abuse at us. And I had quite a young team of volunteers on the bus with me, and he was quite scary. You know, he was quite violent. I wasn't sure that he wouldn't start like physically going for people, so that was quite hard. I was also in you know, we had canvassers being spat on, we had all sorts of horrific things being said, mostly people at the doors. You know, if they were no, they just go, no, I'm a no, or no thank you, and they just close the doors. You know, people don't want the conflict. But on the streets, there were terrible things. My worst experience, there were two bad experiences. One was, and it was towards the end of the campaign, and I think I was just tired, but I was up in Stillorgan Shopping Centre, and you know, this place, I went to school nearby, I grew up nearby. Place I thought would have been fairly okay, you know, South County Dublin, you'd think, but very hostile kind of response, and I was very dejected. I remember getting back on the bus and having a cry. Just didn't want to see the volunteers seeing me, but just feeling like, Jesus, how can people be so heartless, you know? And that was pretty bad. The worst experience was a church thing. So we were, at the time, we were part of a parish. We've moved away now, but a lovely, inclusive parish. They knew we were same-sex couple. We had our daughter baptized there. They're just lovely, lovely people, And a well-intentioned person in the parish organized a series of events, talks about different things, and 1 week was around spirituality and sexuality. Okay, and there was a colleague of mine who'd gone to talk, and because it was only up the road, I said, I'll go up, and you know, a bit of moral support. She was talking about, you know, being a gay man and a gay Catholic man, and how excuse me, he kind of, you know, despite the teachings on it, how he remained faithful, and how he worked that, I suppose, out in his head. And anyway, he gave his talk. He was well received, mostly. But then the questions started, and the questions were very pointed away from him and really at marriage equality. So the organizer kind of saw me in the audience, asked me to stand up and answer them. And as I stood up and moved to the front, I could see the first few rows were packed full of all the familiar faces of the no, who would be on the TV. They were from a parish up the road that's very, very conservative.
I don't have any money, just be careful about saying things, because I know there has been a bit of controversy.
I won't name them. I won't name them.
We can't name names. I don't have 84,000 to spare.
But they said awful things to me, you know, and personalized attacks on me being a mother and all that kind of thing. And it was the only time I've ever like broke down and cried in public. Like, I just felt so attacked. And I think it was because I was in my safe space amongst other people. Now, the beautiful thing that happened was, after that event, you know, people from my parish came up and they were like, oh, I don't know, they're from up the road. You know, they're not us. Don't you worry about them. We don't think like them, and all this kind of thing. And I you know, I had you know, a visit, and I had cards and all sorts of stuff from people from the parish. When we went back on to the church the next Sunday, you know, people come up and shaking our hands and going, you know, they weren't from this parish now, and all this kind of thing. You know, and you know, come polling day, I saw loads of them coming out of the polling station giving me the thumbs up, and so that was lovely, you know. But it was tough, you know. I think I'd heard all sorts of horrible homophobic things said to me into my face, and you know, it's not nice, but you know, I can put up with that. But when people are attacking you for being a mother or attacking your children's rights or something like that. It's a line you don't cross, you know.
Of course, we know the positive side. It's, I mean, that there was an absolute, you know, it was obvious in the referendum result that, you know, the overwhelm of support. I mean, obviously that was far outweighed the you know, the challenges along the way. So Moninne, you could have said, you know what, you know, brilliant. It's June, the end of June, I'm grand. I'm going to take a few days up, a few months up. You didn't. That November, you ended up in Belong To. Yeah. So, like a lot of what we've been talking about, and you can see, you mentioned about the bullying, effectively through the marriage equality campaign and the changes in your life, that your experience in life is certainly something that is a great support, you know, obviously in a job that they're doing now, and supportive to young people. The platform that is there, I mean, through all these challenges that young people are facing, you know, the challenge that they have, they can get married if they want to. And that's thanks to the work that you know, you and the Yes Equality team did. I'm going to totally change it up now and ask you what your favorite song is and why.
Oh, Jesus. Well, every day it's different. I love singing. I'm not a good singer, but I sing all the time, and drives my my partner and my daughter mad. Well, actually, no, my daughter likes it. She joins in, but Clodagh mad. What's my favorite song at the moment? Jesus, I don't know.
Would you believe, of all the serious conversations we're having with people around the world, this is the stumping question.
I know. God. Do you know what I love? What listening to? So I like listening. I like listen to podcasts and music and stuff when I'm going for my walk. You know, taking a break. I live near the sea, so I go for a walk in the mornings to the sea. And I love that song. So it's the version sung by Nina Simone, where she said, "Here comes the sun," and that's just so beautiful. It's like I listen to that when I'm finish my walk on the way home, and it's like sets me off in good spirits. Yeah.
Keeping up with the serious questions. If you had a desert island, you can bring two people on a desert island for a period of 12 months, who would you bring?
Oh, that's easy. Clodagh and Edie, my partner, my daughter. I mean, we've been literally on a desert island for the last 12 months already, and we haven't killed each other. So yeah, I would. They're you know, Edie just, you know, she's 7 and she just finds joy and in all sorts of things. Also moans, you know, and that's fine too, but she does. And then Clodagh, because she just makes me laugh so much, and she's so creative. Like we've over the lockdown, we were doing things like having French night, and we'd all get dressed up as French people and eat French food, and or a Spanish night or whatever, you know. So we made a big thing of it, and she's, you know, yeah, she's just grateful. I love them both.
And the last question I'm going to ask you, and we're coming up on time, the last question I'm going to ask you is, who inspires you and why?
Oh, God, there's so many people. Obviously, I've mentioned Catherine Zappone and Anne Louise Gilligan, big inspirations for me, role models. People like Alva Smith as well, who was one of my teachers in UCD, and still somebody I'm in contact with. She was obviously involved in marriage equality, a leader in that, a leader in the repeal campaign as well, and somebody who I just have huge respect for. I also then would follow a lot of people on Instagram and listen to podcasts. So, you know, people like Brené Brown, Glennon Doyle, you know, gosh, there's loads of people who would be kind of in the well-being kind of side of things, and you know, so, you know, and yeah, and a lot of them who are kind of still unpicking things around sexism, racism, not afraid to go with the big topics, you know.
Tell us where we can find out some of the work. Where can we go to find out some of the campaigns and the work that you do and belong to?
Yeah, so I mean, the easiest way, I suppose, is our website, belongto.org. So there's loads of information there for young people, for parents, for teachers and other professionals supporting young people. free training, lots of resources and materials as well. And then on social media, we're on all the main ones as well. The big ones, so Facebook and Twitter and Instagram, and we're on TikTok as well for communicating with young people. And then you can follow me on Twitter. I don't say anything very interesting though, but mostly it's just sharing stuff.
Perfect. And that just you're a true inspiration, and hopefully there's some if there's a young person out there listening, who's been in a boat that lots of people are, and as we found, a lot of the experiences are shared. So that you're not alone. Check out belong2.org. Moninne Griffith, thank you very much.
Thank you, Dave.
And that's it for another week. Thanks for joining us this morning, and do join us next time on Be Your Best You. Have a good week.